This beautiful booklet, I've been reading this book for maybe 10 years, maybe more than that, maybe 20 years. It's a small booklet that's only 35 pages, and it's selections from Fath al-Bari. Now, Fath al-Bari it literally means the openings of the Creator. And it's a commentary on Sahih al-Bukhari by Sayyidina al-Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. Sayyidina al-Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani is one of the greatest imams of hadith, of aqeedah, of fiqh. Now, he's not a specialist in aqeedah, but his work in hadith, his sharh of Sahih al-Bukhari, is so lauded because of his accuracy in aqeedah and fiqh. And that's why Allah has elevated this book. It was written in its time, certain passages in it were written in gold. They actually wrote it in gold. And they had a huge celebration when this book was finished in Egypt. And the sultans were there, and everyone important was there. So this section is all about life and afterlife. And I think this is a great time to read it, because when we're at a time of fasting, it's a time where you sort of feel like leaving this world a little bit, and we're behaving like angels in the sense that our nourishment in this month is all dhikr, and more so than food. So let's get straight into this book, and let's just read it cover to cover in the next coming days. We'll probably finish it in the first week or so, but it's going to be a great resource to have read this book. So I don't know if it's for sale, but you can check if there's a Muslim Academic Trust. This was on sale, a long time ago, but you could check for yourselves. It's called Selections from Fath al-Bari by translated by T.J. Winter or Abdul Hakim Murad. So let's just take this first narration here. And it says, the Prophet ﷺ says, there are two blessings in which many people are cheated: health and leisure. نعمتان مغبون فيهن كثير من الناس الصحة والفراغ. There's actually no Arabic here, but I happen to know this hadith. He says here, two blessings. A blessing, a ni'mah, is a good state. It is sometimes defined as a benefit conferred upon another out of kindness. So a ni'mah is, if you look at all these things, we always look at benefit and harm. Anytime that you look at any of these positive words, like ni'mah, barakah, khair, all of these words, you can really summarize them very simply as the acquirement of benefit and the elimination of harm. All right. Now, the nuance of ni'mah is that it's conferred by somebody else. Right? So al-mun'im is the one who he gives ni'mah to others. He's a giver. Okay. He says the word cheating or ghabn, and the word in the hadith is maghboon, cheated. According to Al-Jawhari, the former refers to cheating in sales, al-ghabn, and the latter cheating in respect to opinions, ghabn and ghaban. All right, little detail there between ghabn and ghaban. On the basis, both may be appropriate to this hadith, since individuals who fail to use these two blessings appropriately are really cheated. And it's Iblis who does this, and by creating cultures within human beings. See, Iblis is not stupid. He's not going to just, every single human that's born, he's going to do the same trick on him. No, he's going to create a system in the life of human beings that harms them. We call those systems cultures. A culture could be good and bad, okay? But cultures here are the cultures that waste time. I mean, I think the number one most obvious thing when I think about wastage of time is video games. All right, now when I was young, there was a little Nintendo, and my parents were very suspicious of it. I barely got to play it. I mean, the first day I got a Nintendo, you got the Nintendo and it came with two games, Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. That was probably one of the happiest days of my childhood. And anyone who was an 80s kid would say the same thing. I hardly got to play it. I only played it maybe Saturdays was the only time I was allowed to play it, right? And I never understood until way later that, of course, when you're young, you don't understand things. Why this is such a waste of time, right? And why they were so suspicious of it and upset by it, right? So, but they, sort of like all of us now, it had to sort of get it, because if you don't, it becomes a huge, big deal in the mind of a kid. So sometimes something that's halal, if everyone has it and you don't, it may become such a huge deal in your mind that the kid then seeks it when it's not appropriate for him anymore. Whereas if he has his fill of it in its time, he stops. So sometimes we as human beings, because of the cultures that we're in, we're always in between choosing which is a lesser of two harms, right? Okay. Which is a lesser of two harms. So it actually reminded me of, this is terrible to be mentioning this in Ramadan. It's sort of silly, but back in, I think it was 1991, the Buffalo Bills, they had the best offense in all the NFL. They were tearing everyone up. They had receivers, quarterback, and a running back combination that was the best in the league. Now the Giants had to play them in the Super Bowl. All right, so you can only do so much with your defense. So the defensive coordinator back then, which was Bill Belichick, he told his guys, listen, we will choose to get burned by the run so that we could stop the throw. Because the throw, you could score touchdown really quickly, whereas the run, it's exhausting. You got to run the whole field. So he says, guys, we're going to let, I can't remember what his name was, the running back, we're going to let him run all day. And you're going to look bad because it's going to look like we can't stop the run. But I want the linebackers, which is like the middle defense, I want you guys dropping into protection of the receivers. I want you to stop the receivers. Let him run. So that game plan, well, they won the game. They won the Super Bowl. That game plan actually made it into the Hall of Fame because he was one of the first coaches to ever explicitly say, we're going to let ourselves get burned by this. Okay? We know that we're going to get burned by this. Well, some of us are parents, some of us are youth, right? We as parents and, assuming most people out there are parents or going to be parents, when we're looking at this stuff, like this cultural stuff, and even as imams, when you give advice and when you let things slide in the community, that it's not great, but the only alternative, if I put the brakes on this part of the culture or this thing that people do, it's actually only going to result in something worse. So sometimes we have to choose to get burned by the lesser fire than the greater fire. And Imam al-Haddad, he had a student one time that got married and had children, and he used to bring his son to the class. And he said to him, why is it you bring this young man to the class? He says, I want him to get used to studying and sitting with them shuyukh. He said, that's wonderful, but don't all the other boys play? He said, yes. He said, I don't want my son to play. I want him to study. He said, Imam al-Haddad told him an amazing wisdom. He said, no, let him go play now, because if he doesn't play, he's going to grow up feeling that he missed playing. He missed out on playing. And then he's going to seek it when it's not appropriate for him to do so. So this is the wisdom behind this concept of letting people get their fill of whatever it is, the phase of life that they're in. Okay? As long as it's in the halal, because if you stifle it, you may actually produce something far worse. Okay? Now, all this is in the context of knowing that Iblis is stealing our time. And he doesn't steal every kid's time one at a time. No, he creates a culture in the society, and then we perpetuate it. Right? We perpetuate this wastage of time. And, gaming is like a thing now. 30-year-olds do this. Of course they do it. Their parents were doing it. Their parents played video games when they were kids. They played video games. Now, that's for, as a Muslim, that's not really like something you want to spend so much time on. I don't know, excess on. And I think that the people who don't have that stuff in their lives, then they never got really into that, I actually think they're better off. I mean, it's a complete waste of time if you ask me. But I mean, it is nonetheless something halal, and it should just not be treated any more than as a possible waste of time. Okay, so we can't go to an extreme on that either. But that's what ghabn means, that Iblis creates in human cultures habits, things that we do that waste time. Okay, so this is why he said we're maghboon, we're cheated. Or we've sold our life at a ridiculously low price. That's what he says here in the book, right? We have sold our lives at a low price. This human life that we have is so precious and so valuable. It's not just about that you're alive. It's what we could do. We have so much potential, human beings. We have so much potential. And I was thinking, I always say, the last frontier, they say, is space. No, it's not. I don't want to go to space. The last frontier is the human mind. What we can do with our brains and our minds, we haven't even scratched the surface, and you wouldn't even believe, okay, what we could do with the human mind. And Habib Omar has a lecture out there. It's not even a lecture, it's like a short clip. And he says, Al-himam wallati takunu fi batin al-insan تحصل لها انفعالات في شؤون الكون. I mean, that's almost like quantum physics here. He's basically saying that from the observations of human beings, and this is all across history, every century, every location, people from their experience will tell you, thought, it actually changes the world. Thought and contemplation. And that's where the quantum physicists are really having a lot of fun. Because it was Einstein and his partner who discovered that when they were observing a quantum particle, it was behaving differently than when they stopped observing it. And when they were thinking about it, okay, it behaved differently than when they were not thinking about it. Okay, and that's where Einstein really just completely, his world flipped upside down, because how could you measure anything at that point? Then all of our objective measurements are almost false, in a sense, because the fact that we're observing it disrupts. It is a factor. The observation itself is a factor. So it disrupts the actual flow of it. See, Einstein was trying to look at the subatomic level and the behavior of subatomic particles. Now, if you take an apple and you just drop it onto the ground, we know what's going to happen. It's going to fall to the center of the earth. But when he disrupted the subatomic level, he saw that they don't behave like larger particles. And that's why quantum physics is a field. The small particles, they don't behave like everything else. They don't just fall. Allah has created them with their own law. This is amazing. They bounce around towards gravity, against gravity. They bounce around almost like if you were to throw up, bouncy balls. Instead of dropping an apple, you dropped a rubber ball. Like, what's going to happen? That thing's going to bounce all over the place, right? So he saw that the subatomic level, everything's bouncing all over the place, and it's impacted by the observer. And that's where the quantum mind studies is coming. Is like, what's inside of us that's connected just by our thought to this subatomic particle that changes its behavior. It's an absolutely amazing study. And it's Allah's creation. It doesn't make a difference Einstein discovered it or whoever. I mean, who discovered electricity. It's all Allah's creation, right? And it's an amazing thing to study, right? That the human mind has so much potential, yet we're wasting it and losing it, as the Prophet's telling us here. We're being cheated, right? You just selling your time and health in lahu. And the difference between lahu and la'ib is that la'ib is amalun batinun lahu ghaya. Okay. It is an action that has no truth to it. Doesn't mean it's haram. It just means it has no reality to it. Reality means like no real life application, such as playing basketball. There's no real life application to that. Unlike swimming, which does, because you can drown and you need to swim. Or horseback riding. It does. So amalun batinun lahu ghaya, but la'ib is meaningless play that does have a function. Okay. It does have a function, which is that you get exercise, right? When you play basketball, you get exercise. You can have suhbah of your friends, right? So you could learn teamwork, etc., like that. So those sports, they're batil in themselves, but they have a ghaya. And that's why there's some acceptability to those things. Allahu, however, is amalun batil laysa lahu ghaya. It's a batil action that has no function. It has no benefit to it at all. An example of that is that if you were to, for example, play dice and you just rolling dice, and whoever has more dice wins, it's a complete waste of time. Okay, it's an absolute waste of time. So that's the two types of la'ib that we get cheated in. He says, according to Ibn Battal, the meaning of the hadith is that a person cannot be leisured until he is financially secure and sound of body. Hence, whoever experiences this should be careful not to be cheated by abandoning gratitude to Allah, one aspect of such thanks taking the form of obeying His commands and prohibitions. Whoever is lackadaisical in this, he's the one who's cheated, because he's cheated out of more, because you could have more if you're thankful. So he makes a good point, Ibn Battal here. He says that people don't really get cheated at all until they're financially secure and their health is excellent. Okay, they're sound of body. So it's when people get into this that they now have time for entertainment. Before that, they don't have time for entertainment. Okay, they don't have the energy because they may be sick. So it's an important point here. And إن الإنسان لا يطغى أن رآه استغنى. Always remember this ayah from Surah اقرأ بسم ربك الذي خلق, Surah Al-Alaq. إن الإنسان لا يطغى أن رآه استغنى. Verily, the human being, he goes beyond his bounds when he finds himself to have been free of needs. And what are the needs? The needs are wealth and physical health. I mean, those are the two needs that we need, right? We need to be physically sound, and we need enough wealth, right, to take care of our affairs. So whenever we get to that, that's where the rot settles in. But when does a fruit rot? After it gets really sweet, right? The rot settles in when you've perfected your blessing. And that's why a person should never actually feel that they've perfected their blessing. And that's why dissatisfaction and boredom are junud min junudillah. You're going to think to yourself, these are terrible attributes. Dissatisfaction and boredom are terrible attributes, right? No, they're not. They're actually, there is a time and place for them. They're only a problem. Boredom is only blameworthy when it's supplanting something that should be disciplined. For example, your salah. You can be bored in tarawih, for example. You should have discipline in that, right? You should be disciplined. Wherever discipline is needed, then boredom should stop, okay? But where there is no discipline needed, then it is okay for boredom to settle in, because boredom is a jund. It's a soldier from the unseen soldiers of Allah moving you to discover something new. It is as if Allah is telling you, you've done enough of this, right? And, the business guys are like this all the time. Oh, I owned a pizzeria for 5 years. I got sick of that. Then I moved on to a diner, got sick of that, right? And a lot of, inventors, right? They invent certain things and they move on to the next thing. So where discipline is not necessary, boredom has a function. Dissatisfaction also has a function, okay? Dissatisfactions must stop at rida. So to be unsatisfied is not necessarily the exact opposite at all times to being content. I can be content, but I want more. If nobody's like that, then there's no advancement. No one will advance. Are you satisfied that you know Allah? Yes, I am. I know Allah. I studied some books, and I have some experience praying and getting my prayers answered and feeling inside of myself nearness to Allah and seeing some dreams. I'm content with that. I'm radi. I should say satisfied, not content. I'm satisfied with that. I'm happy with that. But that doesn't mean it's enough. I want more. And this is something that Allah wants within us. while he created all this creation, and he himself is the greatest maqsood. Maqsood means purpose. Allah himself, you know Allah to a degree. You're happy with that knowledge. You live well because you know Allah. But is that enough knowledge of him? You can go deeper. And how do you come to know Allah? Through his creation. So we are a people who, subhanAllah, this is where, when we talk about the balance of Islam, sometimes spirituality, when it's excessively done or incorrectly done, it could actually hurt you, right? Because you misunderstand the nature, the true reality of satisfaction, contentment, etc. Right? So these things, they can come together. The concept of seeking more in all of aspects of life, while being happy with what Allah has already given us, they can come together. He then continues, the Prophet saying, many people, and by the way, Ishraq is at 6:20 today, so we're going to stop around 6:20 for Ishraq. If you want to drop off, you have to go to work or you're tired, feel free to do so. We have 31 people here, so if you need to move on, don't worry. I know it's a weekday and people need to move on, but we're going to stay until Ishraq. So, and look at how much energy we have on the first day of Ramadan, right? I mean, do you remember last year, on like 23rd day and stuff, I was almost barely keep my eyes open doing these because the days were getting so long. But here we go. Many people, an indication, he says here, that only a few are granted success in this. The Prophet ﷺ said many people. And in the Sharia, what does many mean? Many is most of the time 1/3 or more. Where do we get that number from? So anytime that's many or few, where is the borderline of the word many and few? Is that like 99%? Is it 10%? What is many? Many is 1/3. And it's not a hard and fast rule. But the ulama do take that, because when they searched in the hadith for any reference point to kathra, to muchness, what is much, they did find a hadith. And that hadith was the Prophet ﷺ talking about the inheritance. And he said that you may bequest to whomever you want up to 1/3, and 1/3 is a lot. Okay? So you can give to any non-inheritor 1/3 of your wealth, and the Prophet ﷺ said, "Athuluthu wa thuluthu kathir." So it's not a hard and fast rule, because someone may say, "Oh, that's in money only." But if you look at that wording, "Athuluthu kathir," 1/3 is a lot, right? It's didn't say only in wealth. So the ulama did take, whenever they need to make a judgment call on what does the word a lot mean, right? 1/3 is the minimum of a lot, the word a lot. So many people here, at least 1 out of 3 people is fooled. But in this sense, I think it's a lot more, right? From observation. When you observe, if you were to observe 3 random young men in the Muslim young men in America, are they, what's going to be the status of them, right? What's going to be their status? So that's how you would take it. And I think that from observation, a lot more than 1/3, a lot more than 1 out of 3 is cheated out of this. And it's not blaming them. It's just saying that they've been given a culture and a paradigm, right, that is bad for them, right? And I even think that the schooling system is an immense waste of time, right? I would go from sophomore, junior, and high school and high school ages. There should be apprenticeships, half a day. They don't need 8 hours a day looking at books, right? Half a day in school, half a day in apprentice. You get to learn real life. You get to meet professionals. They can inspire you to go into fields. So like every semester, 3 years, sophomore, junior, and senior year. That's 3 years, 4 semesters, 12 terms. each semester, each marking period. Okay, or you can break it down to 9 if you want. So 3 for each year, though 9 total. So that's more time. Each marking period, right? You go to a specialist, right, of some sort, and all sorts of jobs, blue collar and so-called white collar and medical and tech, and you go work, and they get free labor too. They get free labor, okay, and you deal with adults. You get inspired by somebody. You learn on the job training, like what is it to run a store? What does it take? What do you do in a hospital? What does a nurse do? What does a surgeon do? How do you run a gas station, right? All these things. You give free label to the community, the business communities. And these kids grow up. Of course, I don't think in the society they want kids to grow up, but I wouldn't want my kids to grow up. You grow up. You work 3 hours, 4-hour shifts every day. You will learn so much. Okay, so much more than just sitting in a classroom, and this is earth science and rock science and these textbooks. You're going to forget it tomorrow anyway, right? You need half of that stuff. Then college, cut the general courses in half, all right? General education, cut that stuff in half, right? We don't need all that. And go straight into your specialty that you chose. And take 2-3 years of studying that while continuing the apprenticeship. And now maybe you get paid a little bit, right? I'm telling you, it's a far greater system for the economy, for maturity, for education. And you're done in college in 2-3 years. That's it. So it's half knowledge, half theory, and half apprenticeship. There's no point in learning theory if you don't know how to apply that theory or where the theory applies. But when you work, when you volunteer, when you're listening to conversations and you're seeing the professionals do their jobs, now you know where the theory is important, where it's applied. So when you go back to the classroom, you're like, yeah, because we had that problem at the company and I overheard them talking. This concept right here would really help them, right? This is, in my opinion, a far more useful use of time. All right. Of course, who knows if it's ever going to happen, but that's my take on education. He says here, the Ibn al-Jawzi, the famous scholar of Baghdad, remarks that a person may be healthy, but not leisured, because he's preoccupied with earning a living. Conversely, he might be financially independent, but in ill health. But when both come together and he's overcome by either his laziness or he abandons good deeds, okay, then he's cheated. The upshot of this is that this world is a sowing ground of the next. And anytime that you're not sowing seeds for the next life, your time's being wasted. Ask any person today. Money in the bank. What a waste of time. Why would you have money in the bank? Right? You only need money in the bank for like maybe 2 months or emergency or something. But after that, you got to put it in investment because the inflation is killing your money. Inflation is driving your money down, the value of your dollar. So put it in. I'm not going to give financial advice, but there are operations out there, right, that are, there's Hupu Financial. None of this is sponsored by NBIC or Shadi Al-Masri. I'm just telling you that they're out there. These are Muslims, Hupu Financial Advisors. You put their money with them and they put it in safe stocks. Stocks that will always be around. Companies that have been around for 25 years, and you could assume that they are there, that they will be there for another 25 years. There's Saturna, which is basically Amana mutual funds. And that liquidity in that is so easy. It's when you want your money back. Let's say I need $500 to change a boiler or something. You do that right away, like within I think like 12 hours or 24 hours. So it's more liquid. That's the value of Saturna. You can get your money back anytime you want. You don't have to go through a process and email somebody, right? And feel like you're making them do paperwork. No, it's completely automated. So, in the same way that anyone who with any financial education would never leave a large sum of money in the bank because it's just a waste. Likewise, our time is our wealth. Time not spent sowing a seed for the akhirah, that's wasted time. And that's why there's a book of intentions which teaches us. There's actually a book called the Book of Intentions. It teaches us that how we should make intentions for everything. That even sitting for dinner with your family, that's an intention right there. You're transmitting you're giving emotional support, right, to the people, your family. You're transmitting knowledge to your family. You're doing a lot of different things. You're transmitting your polity. You're transmitting manners. The Ottomans perfected the education through the dinner table more than anyone else. Everything is there. Literally everything. There's tawheed. There's shukr of Allah. Shukr al-ni'mah. Right? There's contemplating the blessing that, people don't have when you eat. There's sharing when you eat. There's etiquettes. There are norms that we expect. We expect you in America to hold the fork a certain way. Now, you say, oh, that's not sunnah. That's not sunnah. But to upset people and be disgusting is makruh, at the very least. Someone shoveling food in his mouth like a caveman. It's upsetting to see, right? So you have to learn. You're at the dinner table. You can't you can't disgust us here. You can't turn people off. So you learn social norms, okay? Social norms are so important to learn. Okay, because when we're a community and we come together, and someday you're going to be sitting in front of your father-in-law, you're going to be proposing. The father-in-law is going to be watching how you eat, right? And then you come to the table starving. It's also not good either. You ever have guests, or you're going to be someone's guest? What did the moms always say? Eat something before you go. Don't go hungry. I always remember this. Don't go hungry to people's house. You get there, you're starving, your eye is getting huge when you're looking at the food, and then you're stuffing your face, and you have a mountain. And I remember my mom used to say, don't do this. They're going to think you starve at home. We starve you or something. No. Eat something so that you go and you can eat moderately. All right? And have adab when you eat. So we got to learn all these things, social norms. How do you learn these things except through the dinner table? Okay. How did we even get to talking about that? We said the sowing ground of the next life. This life is a sowing ground for the next life. Okay. Every single thing, even eating dinner at the table, can be amal lil akhirah. Now, what do we say about that? We say it's not an act of worship, but it's muthab. It's rewardable. All right. So an act of worship is a ritual that the Prophet introduced to us, like salah, som, zakah. But when I use my intention to do something halal for the sake of Allah, then we don't say that it's an act of worship, but we call that you are in a state of worship and that the action can be rewardable. That's the difference between an act of worship and a rewarded act. Okay? Act of worship is something in the religion that we know. Salah, Som, Zakah, Hajj. But a rewardable action, it can be any halal act that I'm doing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the difference. At-Tibi says, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam coined the parable of a merchant possessed of capital, which he aims to preserve intact while making a profit. Right? The way he may accomplish this is by taking every precaution in selecting the people with whom he deals, by being honest and intelligent so as not to be cheated. All right, so likewise, health and leisure are your capital, and one should deal with Allah by maintaining faith and struggling against the nafs and against enemies of religion, so that one may gain the profit of this world and the next. What's the easiest way to this? The fastest, simplest way to do this is to keep good company and to persist upon that company. Never stop. You can't keep good company for 10 years, then say, okay, I got it all. I'm done. This is one of the tricks of Iblis, and I've seen it happen to people. Wallahi, I've seen it. It's a scary thing. You don't want it to happen to you. Oh, I keep good company with the people for 10, 15 years. He's so marinated in religion. He's marinated. He's really good at the deen, right? but he thinks he's done. And he thinks that he doesn't need the people anymore. So he stops keeping the company of the people. And then everything is fine for a while. But fast forward 5 years and he's off the mark. His perception of things is now, I would say, incorrect. His perception of things is off. It's not in line with the perception of the ulama anymore. Or the regular common Muslims even. So this is why if you want one simple rule, all right, to guidance, it's keeping good company. And that's why the companions of the Prophet are called companions, not students. They're called companions. Until the day of our death, we keep company with the fuqaha, with the dhakirin, and with the jama'ah of Muslims. And it's very simple. Just go to the masajid. You go to masajid, you'll hear imams' names, you'll listen to them, and you keep their tabs with them online now. Internet is a hujjah. It's a proof for us or against us now. The internet is a proof for us or against us. So we have to use it, take advantage of it. Saliha M is asking, can a mundane action be elevated to sacred through intention? Yes, 110%. So we would say about a mundane act, like eating, like helping an old lady cross the road. It's not an act of worship, but it's a rewardable act. And it's actually, though the acts of worship, we all do the same ibadah pretty much. We all fast, we all make hajj and umrah. The ulama say that where people surpass others is not in the ritual worships, it's in mundane actions that are transformed through intention. That's where you win. That's what the ulama say. Okay? We all fast and pray the same amount. We give zakat to what we can, whatever we have. So we're pretty much all even in that. Okay? It's in the reward, it's in the mundane action and transforming those intentions that we surpass other people, right? And our race is won and lost in that realm, in the mundane actions that we transform with intention. I mean, think about this. How many times you go out and you're chit-chatting with your neighbor? You could make an intention out of that, right? And intention doesn't always have to be, some kind of fake sounding intention like I want to, this is going to be dawah. No, it could just be lifting their spirits for an hour, for 5 minutes or something like that. Then they have they'll have a good opinion of Muslims, but also just you as a human. That's the highest thing. The highest intention is to reflect well on the religion of Islam, because that's the deen of Allah. That's the highest intention, right? I remember someone actually making fun of that. And they said, we all do things just for Islam, right? And we don't do it genuinely. I said, wait a second. First of all, Islam, you think this is like a race or ethnicity? It's the deen of Allah. To reflect, to make people think highly of Allah's religion is the best thing that you could possibly do. This is not our political party or our ethnicity or identity, culture, badge or whatever. This is the deen of Allah. To make people think that the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we view them positively, and I have a warm feeling about them. This is the best thing that you could do. This is far better than anything else that you could do for somebody. Okay, because now they're having a good opinion about the infinite and all that he could do for them. Right? So that's the highest form of da'wah. But the way in which it's going to go is by just being a good example, by being someone pleasant to be around. Likability is something the Prophet ﷺ spoke about. Muslim alif aluf, which means he's easy to get along with others, and he allows others to get along with him, right? So he allows people he's approachable, and he gets along with people. The Prophet wanted us to be like that, so that this message will spread when it's a hallmark that the Muslim is somebody you can easily get along with. He's not argumentative, he's not difficult, etc., etc., etc. Okay? All right, let's see what else we have here. He says, it's akin to Allah's statement, shall I point you to a trade which shall save you from a painful punishment. Tijaratun tunjikum min adhabin alim. Surah Al-Jumu'ah. Consequently, he must avoid obeying the nafs and responding to Satan. How do we avoid obeying the nafs? We avoid obeying our nafs by every once in a while deny it a very, 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 very small thing that it desires. Very small thing. Okay. So much so they say a spoon of food. Right? So if you want 5 spoons of food, well, make it 4.5 or make it 4. Why do they say that? If it's more important that it's habitual than that it be much. So the habit of regularly denying my nafs a very small amount is more important than denying my nafs a big amount. Why? Because it becomes a habit now. Now the nafs knows that on the regular basis I don't get every single thing that I want for myself. Right? Whereas if you were to do the opposite and deny your nafs something huge, then at that point you're going to have a backlash, and you don't want that backlash. Your nafs will fight you back the moment you get exhausted from fighting it. It's going to fight back. Right? He continues, says, in which many people are cheated, resembles his saying, and scarce among my slaves are the thankful. وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Surah Saba. Very few, scarce, the Quran says, are the thankful. And what is ash-shakur? The one whom, when he is struck by benefit, struck by harm, has the same reaction, because he knows they're both from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, when you're struck by harm, you're hurt, you're in pain. There's no denying that. When you're struck by happiness, you're happy. However, his reaction in the deen, in other words, his religious behavior thereafter, it improves in both cases, because he knows this is from Allah. All right, one more paragraph left. He says, Al-Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi states, there are different views as to which is the first blessing which may come upon a slave of Allah. Some say it is Iman, others say it is life, others say it is health. But the first of these is the preferable understanding, since it represents an unconditional blessing. Because life, you can have life and you go, and well, dogs have life, right? You can have life and go to hellfire. But Iman will take you to the eternal life. Right? In their absence, many people are cheated. That is to say, they lose all or part of their profit. Whoever goes along with a soul that commands evil, and nafs al-ammara bis-su', which eternally summons us to take our ease and abandon any respect for divinely appointed boundaries and consistent acts of obedience, has been cheated. Likewise, if he is at leisure for work, might have served him as an excuse. So if you were sort of impoverished and you needed to work a long amount of hours, at least you have an excuse. But to be rich and lazy is worse. They talk about habits, and they say that it's important to enforce on kids, use a little bit of pressure to force them into good habits when they're young, and to deny them of things that are indulgent of the nafs. For the reason as follows, is that when they get older, the good habit becomes a great memory. As long as it's not, with excessive harshness, because then it becomes, like something that's traumatic. But for example, you accustom your son to wake up for Fajr. Maybe you accustom your kids to go to the masjid. You accustom them to recite the Quran. When they get older, when they're 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, that stuff becomes memories now. That's like, it's my childhood memory. And he longs for it for multiple reasons now. The opposite. When you deny, let's say, music, you say, no, we're not doing this. We're not listening to music, right? And you shut it down. They may be frustrated at the moment, right? But when they go behind your back and do it themselves, we know most of the kids are going to do that. They're not going to feel comfortable with it. It's going to take them, by the time they get used to it, right? A lot of time has passed. So they say that the young person who is not accustomed to something evil, right? Oh, music, we say, the ulama say it's haram. Bulk majority of them say it's haram. Uh, Maybe not evil, but it's haram. And anything haram, I guess you could say, is in the category of evil, right? I don't want people to think we're overinflating something, but it is haram and it's something that we avoid. But if you got them not used to it, they're used to not listening to it. So they're going to have to go through a phase where they break themselves into it. Well, by the time they break themselves into it, maybe, a long period of time has passed, right? And as a result of that, at least they weren't so quick to go into the act of disobedience, right? So if you're, I think you take a regular Muslim kid and you were to, he's born Muslim and he never went to one of these clubs before. We see him in the movies, but we've never been to one. You'd go in there, you wouldn't know what to do. You'd feel out of place. The people would shun you because you look like you don't know what you're doing, and you don't. So that's a good thing. That means it'll take you about 2 years to get used to going to a club, right? And you might have bad experiences because you're not good at it. You're not good at committing sins. So you might have bad experiences. They may make fun of you, and that might keep you away, right? So that's the value and benefit of getting people accustomed and not being accustomed to acts of disobedience. All right, let us stop here. That stops us at that first hadith, and we'll maybe, again, we will do this bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Allah gives us the health and the strength to do so up to Ishraq. This is one of the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right, we're good to go. So jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wal asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu as-salihat. Wa tawasaw bil haqq. Wa tawasaw bis sabr. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.